The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discussion. I'm your host, Joe Nearin, aka Good Lawgic. I'm just going to get right in on it. It's late. We started late. I hold you partially responsible. Partially. Very small part of this has to be your fault. I can't explain. I'm not going to walk you through it. Look, let's just not apportion blame. Let's just agree that mistakes were made. Mistakes were made on both sides. I'm definitely partly to blame. I'm definitely at least partly to blame for the late. Definitely at least partly to blame. And I can be big enough to accept that upon myself. Why can't you? Look, maybe that's just the way I am. I'm the kind of guy I can accept. Not everyone can accept responsibility. Not everyone can recognize, their errors, and that's okay. That's part of the whole growing process. So, did my head get longer? No, it's just my head sounds funny. Well, all right, let's get it going. Let's get it on. So, this is a video that's 2 days old. Jimmy Dore put out, and it's almost an hour long, which means it's like the perfect length for me to review. It's almost an hour long, where he has this guy on, Dr. Robert Epstein, who for some reason or another decides to refer to himself as Dr. Robert Epstein, which only means Chino. It's a very Gino thing. No, I'm not an Epstein. I'm an Epstein. I'm not related to Jeffrey at all. Why would you even think such a thing? His name is Epstein. Mine is Epstein. Now, Epstein is a fairly common name, so there really is no reason to assume that he's any sort of traceable blood relation to Dr. Jeffrey. Dr. Robert, excuse me, is related to Jeffrey, not Epstein, but it is the same name. It's almost like if I moved to Italy, I would call I would be Giuseppe Nirmani. It's the same name. Everyone knows it. You're not fooling anyone. Epstein is like the comb over of names. That's what it is. Like Weinstein. It's the comb over of names. You're not fooling anybody. Nobody. Literally, just stop. You're not Weinstein. You're Weinstein. You're Epstein. You're Weinstein. Stop doing the comb over. It's a bad look. I never came up with that philosophy before that. It's the comb over of names, but I'm very quickly embracing it as being certain truth. All right. Jimmy Dore. I frequently cannot stand Jimmy Dore, but sometimes he brings in people who can speak truth, and I like the first 10 minutes of this, so let's do it.
We have a special guest, returning friend of the show, Dr. Robert Epstein is the senior research.
It's a comb over. It's Epstein.
Psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology, a Harvard PhD, and a former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today. He's also an author, journalist, and has held positions at several universities, including Boston University and Harvard University. He also leads the tech negating the social narratives and, crucially, of the world's first safeguard. How you doing, buddy?
I'm up and down. I would say a little stressed.
A little stressed. Well, maybe this is why. We're going to show a little bit of your testimony. Last week you testified in front of Congress, and so let me play a little bit of that right now.
I'm here to tell you about an existential threat to our country that is so well hidden. I warn you, by the way, some of what might turn up on the screen in the next a minute or two might be disturbing. I apologize in advance, but it's necessary that you see it.
Show us.
It's so well hidden that you might know nothing about it. It's a threat posed by big tech monopolies, eerily predicted by President Eisenhower in 1961.
Eisenhower.
In 2016, Google alone shifted more than 2.6 million votes to Hillary Clinton, whom I supported, using subliminal techniques I had been studying and quantifying since 2013.
But maybe you only supported her because big tech tricked you into it.
4 days later, a leaked video showed Google's leaders, devastated by Trump's win, telling their employees they would not allow Trump to win the presidency again. They would guarantee his defeat through their, quote, great strength and resources and reach. They made good on this promise in 2020 and in
Y'all sitting here hating on the man. Y'all sit. I see you. I see you in the chat saying stuff like this. Saying stuff like this. I see y'all. I see y'all. Trust me, you're gonna like him by the time he's done. You're gonna like him. You're gonna like his message at least. You might not like him, but you're gonna agree with a lot of things he says.
In 2022, as I explained recently in the Epoch Times, they stopped the red wave cold. I lean left, but I don't think a private monopoly, one with no accountability to the public,
I said Gino.
should be able to pick our nation's leaders. Who knows how these secretive companies will lean next year, after all. After that all-hands meeting, Google perfected at least a dozen new methods of subliminal control that I have now been studying using rigorous scientific methods for more than a decade. To shift votes, we know from leaked emails that Google relies on what they call ephemeral experiences.
Which are very different from effeminate experiences. But some of their ephemeral experiences may be effeminate.
Leading content such as search results, search suggestions, and up next videos on YouTube. Content that impacts undecided voters.
He's not just revealing the Google algorithm. He's going to walk through the extent of its impact, how we can see how there's the evidence behind it.
And then disappears, leaving no paper trail. Since 2016, my dedicated team has been building increasingly more sophisticated monitoring systems that preserve and analyze ephemeral content. This is Google's worst nightmare because it means we are surveilling them just as they surveil us and our children 24 hours a day.
Yeah, he doesn't write well. He wrote this speech, doesn't write well. It's like he's trying too hard, but the content is really what I'm going to focus on more than the stylistic inabilities.
In other words, we are giving you, our nation's leaders, the ammunition you need to finally hold Google and other tech companies accountable.
And I'm not going to kid you. He definitely gives off a vibe like the gardener is home, enjoying it, like participating in like activities with his wife. He definitely gives that vibe. It's a very strong vibe like that. There is. You either see it or you don't. There's a very strong vibe like that.
To the public. Our research, which we publish in prestigious peer-reviewed journals, allows us to measure the power big tech has to shift votes, while our monitoring systems let us see whether these manipulations are actually being used. In one case so far, we shared
rather easily
our data with Senators Lee, Johnson, and Cruz. They sent a strong letter to the CEO of Google, which ceased some of its election manipulations that very day.
Really?
It turned off the political bias in its search engine and stopped sending partisan go vote reminders on its homepage.
That's important. This is important. You need to hear this part. In fact, we're going to even close caption this because you need to hear this part. This is important in case you sort of zoned out while V was sending me messages in Jew code. This is important.
Our research, which we publish in prestigious peer-reviewed journals, allows us to measure the power big tech has to shift votes, while our monitoring systems let us see whether these manipulations are actually being used. In one case so far, we shared our data with Senators Lee, Johnson, and Cruz. They sent a strong letter to the CEO of Google, which ceased some of its election manipulations that very day.
Senator Lee, Senator Johnson, Senator Cruz.
Really?
It turned off the political bias in its search engine
Even
and
Jimmy Dore is impressed.
stopped sending partisan go vote reminders on its homepage. Through our monitoring, we detected those changes the moment they were made. We preserve ephemeral content through the computers of a representative sample
He asked me if I could read it. He said, "Can you read this?"
of real voters. One must monitor through the computers of real people because big tech sends out personalized content. To see what they're sending people, you must look over the shoulders of real people.
Yeah, no, like I said, his presentation on a scale of 1 to 10 is like -2, but that doesn't mean that his content doesn't merit some reflection. So you publish and shows peer-reviewed journal. That's what I need. I need a peer-reviewed journal. I should start writing journals and sending them to my peers for them to review. Maybe that's what Steve Gosney is doing when he sends me these books. I'm his peer reviewing it. I'm reviewing his journals.
Just like the Nielsen company does with television viewers. Algorithms, my friends, I'm sorry to say, cannot be regulated because they are inherently opaque, even to the programmers. And even if you did regulate, we still need to monitor to make sure there is compliance. We started small.
Do you know how he's monitoring? He has people agree to have them basically continually capture whatever is showing on their phone. Thousands of people agree to capture. He's literally looking over people's shoulders at what they see so he can see what's being popped up and thrown at them with thousands of people. And we know this works. It's the same thing like Nielsen rate, like people reporting. It's actually more effective than Nielsen because Nielsen is reliant on self-reporting, and this is just automatically capturing. I don't know how he gets thousands of people to agree to have a monitor, but yeah.
But have deployed bigger systems with each election. In 2022, we preserved more than 2.5 million ephemeral experiences through the computers of more than 2,000 voters in 10 swing states. We are now building the world's first nationwide digital shield, and we just released a public dashboard. It's at americasdigitalshield.com. It's what you're seeing on your screen. And it shows our cumulative findings in real time as we are receiving the data. We are collecting and displaying data 24 hours a day through the computers of more than 13,000 voters in all 50 states, and so far we have court admissible data in 15 states. We have thus far, the extreme political bias we are seeing in content being sent to voters, along with the highly sexualized and violent content being sent to America's kids, confirm my worst fears. The technological elite, as Eisenhower called them, are now in control of our democracy, and they are systematically indoctrinating our children. If we can secure funding to expand our system so we have court admissible data in all 50 states, the tech companies will back down in 2024. And even if they don't, we will have incontrovertible evidence of election rigging on a massive scale.
See, the reason what I like about this is, I have to tell you something. I put up a poll. There's probably only like 100 or maybe like 100 votes so far on the poll because I just put it up like a little bit ago, like just a teensy little bit ago. Okay, which was basically asking whether you think, big tech can be controlled. It's got 100 votes so far. I haven't looked at the results yet. Let's see what we got. Big tech is unstoppable. Big tech are cucks. Cucks can be stopped, or big tech are unstoppable cucks. But here's 30% of you nearly. I don't know how somehow my poll has 101%, because 72 plus 25 plus 4 is definitely 101. But 29 out of 101% of you have concerns that big tech cannot be stopped, and rightfully so, because they seem like an unstoppable force, despite the fact that they're a bunch of cucks. But he's basically laying out not just saying they can be stopped, but laying out what seems to be a formidable and attainable plan.
If no monitoring system is in place, Google alone will be able to shift between 6.4 and 25.5 million votes in the 2024 presidential election, leaving no paper trail and making a mockery of the free and fair election. Thank you for your attention and for protecting our great nation from threats, both foreign and, I hope, domestic.
Wow. So let me bring in Dr. Robert Epstein. That's some pretty powerful stuff. Now, I remember the last time you were on this show, it blew everybody's mind because you're really making the charge. You're really making the case that Google itself, Google, which is the most popular online search engine, is actually manipulating votes, and they're pushing certain information to people that changes their opinion on how to vote, and then they vote a certain way. And Google knows they're doing this. That's what you're saying.
Oh, they definitely know.
There's no question about it.
It's
I mean, we know this
coordinated.
from whistleblowers and from leaks from the company. So this is no longer guesswork on my part. This is the truth. And I haven't looked at that video, but I noticed I was being a little bit dramatic there.
Like I said,
let me tell you that this it wouldn't matter how dramatic I was or am, because you cannot even begin to overestimate the importance of what this is about. It's the fact that it's invisible makes it 100 times worse. The fact that it's operating on such a huge scale, that's unprecedented. The fact that it's operating not just in the US, but affecting more than 5 billion people around the world, every country in the world except mainland China, which Google has also helped. This is very, very serious stuff. And sometimes when I get in front of a group and I'm given enough time, I can scare the heck out of people. Then they walk out with their surveillance phones in their pocket that are literally listening to every single thing they do and tracking their location constantly and reporting what songs you're listening to on your phone and what you're reading on your phone. And I mean, they just walk out back into that world of extreme surveillance, extreme censorship, extreme manipulation, and they just carry on as if there's nothing to see here.
Okay, which is true, and it's an interesting thing, and we all do it, myself included. I don't expect to turn off my phone as soon as I finish streaming. It's on right now. So we all do it, but that's because, a phone has become a necessary extension. So it's not a lack of caring, it's a lack of capacity to function without it, and it's perhaps a hubris in an expectation that, well, it's not going to affect me. Epstein is a very unfortunate, unacceptable name right now. That sucks. Yeah, but he's not Epstein, he's Epstein. Totally different. I didn't even realize when I referred to it as a comb over name that he has a comb. He has a comb over. I wasn't saying it that way, but I was. All right.
Well, I actually did see a news item this morning that Chrome, now Google's web browser is called Chrome, and there's a lawsuit right now that's proceeding in California that when you turn on your incognito searching, right, you're going to go, Google's really not turning on your incognito searching. In fact, Google is still tracking you and every website that you go to. That's according to this lawsuit.
I'll tell you this. I got very freaked out like 4 or 5 years ago. Before I was doing social media. So I was publicly under my own name. So I used to operate under fictitious names. And what freaked me out, what really freaked me out, was that I had done some e-shopping where I had done some browsing. And after I did the browsing, so I was looking at some shirts in a store. And I was like, maybe this one, like sort of put it in my cart. Another one, I took like 3 shirts and I put them in a cart, but I didn't buy them. And like a week later, I went in to my alias and I opened up Facebook under my alias, which was like, unrelated to me personally. And I'm seeing on Facebook advertisements, not just from the same store, but pushing me to buy those specific shirts were being like highlighted, like, oh yeah, you might be interested in this. You might be interested. And there was 3 of them. And I was just the same 3. And I was just like, that's very disconcerting. I sort of felt like at that time, I felt reliant on the anonymity of being on a different alias. And the next thing I know, and it was like 2 different phones also. I was like, how the hell's that happen? Like how they know this is me? They know that guy. They know who I am. It was very chilling. It was very chilling because I was like, this is very freaky. It's very, very freaky.
Were you aware of that also?
Right from the start.
It wasn't
In
the
fact,
same IP address. It was 2 different phones. It was two. Well, on one, I was logged in on one phone under myself, and the other phone I was using under my alt ident, and it didn't matter. And I was just like, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" That's very, very strange.
And wrote about it when they introduced incognito because we ran some tests and we found it's a complete fake.
Edward Snowden takes the microphones out of his phones and uses headsets talking to them because he knows they're monitored. Interesting.
Does it mean they're watching you incognito?
In fact,
Were you aware of that also?
right from the start. In fact, I even wrote about it when they introduced incognito because we ran some tests and we found it's a complete fake.
Does it mean they're watching you incognito? Like they said they weren't.
Yes. So
they're incognito spying on you.
So do you think this is kind of why might be one of the reasons Google used to have a motto and their motto was do no evil? They got rid of that. And would you consider what they're doing evil?
I'm not a big fan of the terms evil and good because I guarantee you the folks at Google who actually know what's going on there, they think they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing a service to humanity. So, good, evil, whatever label you put on it, I'm telling you that it's much bigger and badder than you could possibly imagine. And by the way, when they do something like introduce incognito mode, whatever it is they do, and I'm telling you this without any exceptions, there are no exceptions to this rule. When they do something, buy something, announce something, it's to get them more data. So if they're introducing incognito mode, it's going to get them more data. If they buy the Nest thermostat company, which they did, it's going to get them more data, not just about the temperature in your house, but they started putting microphones into some of the Nest devices, and they put cameras in the devices. If they buy the Fitbit company, it's to get them. If they buy Google, YouTube, it's to get them more data. Whatever it is they're doing, it gets them more data, even if it looks like it's doing the opposite.
So now you've set up a website.
It's an astonishing claim, which is likely true. So in 2018, I have no source, but it's been reported that Russia may have stopped Hillary from cheating. That's why she says there was Russian interference, FYI. Maybe.
To counter the power of Google doing this, right?
Yeah.
And so it's called, here it is, it's called live, Andrew, it's called live ephemeral experiences captured, right? So is that
No, it's called America's Digital Shield.
Okay, americasdigitalshield.com. And what I'd like to show, I'll show it in live. Let's show it right now in real time. Go ahead to the camera, whatever camera is that. So that is that website, and it says it's shining a light on big text, dark seek. Now, what am I seeing? Can you tell me what this is?
Well, that doesn't seem to be live, because if we're live, the numbers would be moving.
They are moving.
They are moving?
Yeah. Oh, you can't see. Oh, okay.
Oh.
But they are moving. It's right now. It's at 70,842,228, 9,
Oh.
37, 38. So it's going up.
You don't have to like read all the numbers over and over again, because
Okay.
the show would be so boring if you just did that from now until the end. But
Okay. Thanks for the tip.
yeah,
Yeah, show
you go-
notes.
yeah. But if you move, if what you're seeing are the number of ephemeral experiences we've captured on Google and other platforms, and it keeps going up because we are monitoring through a politically balanced group of more than 13,000, we call them field agents or watchdogs in all 50 states. And we're looking over their shoulders with their permission, and we're capturing what's on their screens. So if they're getting, let's say, partisan register to vote reminders on Google's homepage, now think about that. That's a really nasty manipulation, but we're capturing it.
What does that mean? A partisan reminder? How could there be a partisan reminder? I thought a go reminder to vote is nonpartisan.
It's a great question from Jimmy. It does sound, when we hear the left talk about it, it's like, what's the problem? They're just reminding people to vote. Why, you have a problem with people voting? You got a problem with people voting? And he gives a perfect answer.
Oh, if they send it to everyone, but they don't send it to everyone.
Oh.
And there's no way to know that unless what? Unless you have a monitoring system in place. So for example, in Florida, in the midterms, our data showed 100% of liberals were getting go vote reminders all day long on election day. 49% of conservatives were getting go vote reminders. That is a massive manipulation. Imagine doing that for months. Partisan register to vote reminders, partisan mail in your vote reminders.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you say that when you
Never in my life have I gotten a vote reminder. Never. Like, not even, no, never once. It's never happened on any alias.
when you made them aware of this, now they stopped doing it. They really Googled, listened to you?
They did not listen to me. They listened to three U.S. senators who sent them a 2-page letter summarizing my data. And they literally that very day shut down some of the most horrendous manipulations they were using in Georgia. And this is in the months leading up to the Senate runoff elections in Georgia. And they literally just turned them off. We saw bias in Google search results go to 0. We had never seen that in 10 years. They literally turned off the bias.
So now how do you measure, how do you know a Google search result is biased?
Because we have algorithms, we have people who rate them, but the main thing we do is we use 3 nonpartisan organizations.
I actually think this is, you're not saying this is a joke. I think you mean it. And I think you're correct. I think I do. So send me something on Good Logic, and I'll send me something right how I can send you on PayPal or Zelle or whatever, and I'll take care of it. No, not Zelle. PayPal or Venmo, and I'll take care of you.
That rate the political bias of news sources, thousands of news sources.
I think I said something like whoever guesses like what my college team is or something like that. I think that's what you want. So, and you can send it to goodlogic at yahoo.com. Excuse me, goodlogic@gmail.com. This is totally not true. Nor is this. No, big money. I remember. I even took care of. I took care of the guy who came in second in my fantasy football league, like 2 days after. I was like, I don't like owing money.
And they keep updating their ratings, and we take the mean of those three numbers. So we have multiple methods of measuring bias very objectively. And if you scroll down a bit, if someone has control over that page.
I own a hat. I might own a hat.
We'll do it right now. So you won't be able to see it, but the people at home will be able to see it. So go ahead, scroll down.
We'll skip over the pictures the kids are seeing, because that's really, it is so disturbing. But just skip down to the graphs, and you'll see a bunch of graphs. And there's a lot of blue. There's lines.
Yes.
And then there's blue. Okay, there's no red. If there's red, that would be a point above the line, and that would mean conservative bias. If there's blue and it's below the line, that means liberal bias. What you're seeing is every single day, over and over again, on Google
and Bing,
and Bing and Yahoo, you're seeing extreme liberal bias sufficient to shift tens of millions of votes because it can shift the votes of people who are undecided. When there's bias, it doesn't affect people who have strong opinions. It affects people who are trying to make up their mind. And so they go to what's ranking very high in the search results. They think that must be true. It must be objective. They click on that link. Boom, they end up on a web page that makes one candidate, the liberal, look much better than the other candidate. And we know from the controlled experiments we've been running for 11 years that that can easily shift after one search between 20 and 80% of undecided voters.
No kidding. Wow.
And if you repeat that over and over again for weeks or months, the numbers get higher. And if you repeat that on different platforms, for example, you have that same bias on YouTube, which is suggesting what video you should watch next, then the numbers get even higher still.
Yeah, well, that's so I'm on YouTube. So somehow they have my show and they would figure out if I had a liberal bias or a conservative bias. And then that would put that into an algorithm. And then I would be suppressed. Correct?
Well, yeah, if they don't like your content,
They don't.
They're going to. Oh.
They don't. And
Well,
then
if they don't like your content, then you're suppressed. One
I know your pain, Jimmy. I know your pain.
of the leaks from Google, it's fantastic. It's a 2-minute video of the CEO of YouTube talking to her employees, and she's got a big screen behind her. She's got a big up arrow and a big down arrow, and she's saying, "We are elevating the content that we think is good, and we're demoting the content that we think is bad."
so I just had this long conversation.
I get a pit in my stomach when Google bought Dexcom and make my continuous glucose monitor. So Google knows my 24/7 blood sugar level. Why? So they can sell you candy. They want to sell you candy. Come to the van. We'll give you candy. We have candy. The man in the van with candy is very underrated. It's not medical.
I've noticed certain
There's no medical advice on this show.
things. So one of the way they suppress a content they don't like and channels they don't like is that they unsubscribe people who have subscribed to your channel.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's right.
and then for channels they like, they don't do that, right? So for instance,
Correct.
there's a Democrat funded news show called The Young Turks, and it was funded by
Oh yeah,
Jeffrey
I know.
Katzenberg. You're familiar with
my
them.
wife used to love that show. It was her favorite show.
Me too. And then they sold out to the Democratic Party.
Right.
They even sold out their subscriber
She and the gardener used to watch it together all the time.
list to the Democratic Party. And now my show, for instance, last month, my show got about 19 million views and the Young Turks got about 7. They added 50,000 subscribers, whereas my show, which got more than double their views, added only 20,000 subscribers.
Right.
So that right there, I'm like, and the same thing was happening with Secular Talk, which is Kyle Kalinske, whose show went absolutely dead for 2 years after he lied about me. And his own viewers called him out. He didn't add a subscriber for 2 years. All of a sudden, Kyle Kalinske, off of horrible view counts, is adding 20,000 subscribers. So I got 19 million
change
views.
his hair color.
He did change his hair color. I got 19 million views. He got about 6 or 7 million views.
This was crazy. This was crazy. I had V Radio on here once. I think I told the story once before, but it's worth sharing again. And I don't remember exactly how it was. I think he was like at 2,800. This is my closest recollection on the numbers. Okay. But the numbers are not important. That's the point. He had 2,800 subs. And I was very determined. I'd seen the work that he had done in exposing all the background and video about Kyle Rittenhouse. And I had him on this show. I don't think it was about Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't remember what, but I was really pushing hard for people to click the link and sub to him. Pushing very, very hard. And during the course of the show, I was watching it go up to like 3,200, 3,400, 3,700. I think he crossed to like 4,000. And it was like he was inching close to it. It's like at 3930 near the end of the show. And I wanted to see, is he going to get to 4,000? Is he not going to get to 4,000? And I was like really pushing very hard. You guys need to click the link. You're gonna like his work. It's very impartial. He brings receipts. I was banging the drum, and I was watching those numbers, and I literally, and after the show ended, like I was talking to him after the show, and I was like, "Did you hit 4,000?" Because I saw we got close, and I clicked on the thing, and it was like at 3950, and I hit refresh, and it was at 2,700. And I was just like, what? He was 100 fewer than what we started. 100 fewer than when we started. That's how unbelievable YouTube was. Yeah. That's your overlords. That's your overlords right there.
And he added 20,000 subscribers. I knew immediately that Young Turks and Kyle Kalinske had made some deal with the devil, and they were on some kind of better.
Of course there is. Of course there is. Yeah, because that's what my viewers want. They want a Biden commercial. It's still working. It's still working. I appreciate it. I guess the test was a success. Still working, same as last night.
Their algorithm that was artificially boosting their channel as far as subscribers. That's for sure. Because his content and the Young Turks content has only gotten worse, meaning less appealing to the people that they're trying to appeal to. Yet their subscriber count is through the roof, which makes absolutely no sense. And so my theory was that they had made some deal with some Democratic donor who said, I can get you on the good. Well, I know the Young Turks did. They got $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's one of the biggest DNC donors. And so I was figuring Kyle Kalinske did.
I need to find me the good algorithm. I know a guy. He's a hardcore lefty who was explaining to me about how he has hookup to get on the good algorithm. He has hookup to get on the good algorithm, on the good juice, the really good juice. Oh man, the algo is gonna make you feel so good. Oh, good algo. Oh. Every YouTuber's dream is good algo. Oh, give me that good algo. Oh, give it to me. Yeah, it's a drug.
Something similar, made a deal that he would get on the good algorithm, which is exactly, I know for a fact is happening. I mean, I don't know for a fact that is happening, but as much as I can be sure. And now what you're telling me completely validates that. And so that would be Google and YouTube putting them on a better algorithm and boosting their content and boosting their subscriber count because they're pro what you would consider liberal, but I would call it, I don't think Democrats are liberal. I think they're authoritarian, and I think they're the bad kind of right wing. And so I just call it Democrat. I don't call the Democrats liberal because I'm a liberal. They're not. And they're for authoritarianism. They're for government mandated medical treatments. They're for every war. And liberals are supposed to be against that stuff. So they're just Democrats. So would you say that YouTube and Google actually boost Democrats content over Republican content?
Because your name is Kyle K. I mean, your name is Left Nuts. You got left in your name.
Let me just tell you, you're talking about these things as if they're hypothetical.
Okay. And, well, I think I have to. I think I have to, or else they'll take me down.
It's good to know.
It means you don't understand what it is that my team and I do. We actually measure these things. You're talking about them as if they're hypothetical. They're not hypothetical. We measure them. They're real. These are real things affecting the thinking and behavior and attitudes and beliefs and purchases and votes of billions of people. And they're real. Every crazy deal you can imagine, every crazy manipulation you can imagine, it's real. It's not your imagination. Look, let me make it really simple, okay?
Okay.
You know how some things go viral and some things don't?
Yes.
And everyone thinks it's just like the lottery. You know, you just, some people get lucky and they win.
Right.
That doesn't work with algorithms. Virality, that's controlled by algorithms. Algorithms are controlled by people. They're written by people. They're modified by people. And anything that goes viral because those companies want it to go viral. Anything that doesn't go viral, it gets just like nothing, or that gets suppressed, it's because they want it suppressed. Now, do they pay attention to everything? No. But anything they pay attention to, they control what happens. So it's not chance. It's literally deliberate and systematic. And that's the situation in which we're all stuck at the moment.
You should listen to this Hillary voter. What should I tell you?
Because there are no laws or regulations in place that put any restrictions on them whatsoever. They have the power of gods, and they exercise the power of gods. One of the leaks from Google, an 8-minute video called The Selfish Ledger, it's about Google's ability to re-engineer humanity. According to, this is right from the film, Google's values.
Wow. Now, let's remember Google's values include being in bed with partners with the CIA, the war machine, and what I would consider the most nefarious, evil entities ever known to man. Okay, so you're not speaking in hypotheticals. You're speaking in hard data because you've actually measured this stuff and you know what's going on. I'll give you one small example from my show. So in the beginning of COVID, in the early summer 2021, we had Dr. Robert Malone on.
Sure.
And they suppressed that. So we sent that video to YouTube first. I go, hey, could you check this? I don't want to put it up on YouTube and then have you give me a strike saying that we are saying something we can't. And so they checked it and they said, no, it's all good. And you could have pushed me over with a feather. And I was like, really? It's all good? So we put it up. It got about 700,000 or 800,000 views, but you cannot find it. Like I've tried to find that video on YouTube. I've tried to go Jimmy Dore.
Yeah, I'm a community note voter too. I am. It's very exciting when they say we have community notes that you need to check out. Give us your vote on. It's very, very exciting stuff. That's right. With great power comes great responsibility. That's all I can tell you, Shayla.
Or Robert, it doesn't come up. You have to almost trick the algorithm and you have to find the right. It's like trying to pick a lock to try to find that video. You can find it, but it is unbelievably hard to find. And it's one of the most popular videos that's ever been on my channel. It's very hard to find. So that's another way they do that. So they know about that video. So then going forward, I'd try to do a video with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about vaccines and COVID. And I sent it to them and I said, hey, could you make sure this is okay? And they said, no, we can't do that anymore. So apparently the guy who said they could do that got in trouble and he was told he can't do that anymore. And so this is my speculation. And so he said, no, we're not going to check your video before you put it up. I go, but you're going to check it after I put it up, right?
Yeah, when they get their orders.
And they go, yeah. And I go, well, why wouldn't you just do? They go, we don't have the manpower to check it before you put it up. But you're going to check it. You have the manpower to check it after I put it up, right? They go, yeah, we're going to check it after you put it up. So that's not that. That's them trying to have control over us, so that that makes us. That's another way to suppress it. So we self-censor. So then I didn't put up the Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Jimmy.
video. I only put it up on Rumble. I didn't put I think the first 1 or 2 interviews I did.
It's a great point. It's a great point. The refusal to pre-check, because it's the same check. It's literally the same check. It's just, you can just check off and be like, this has been checked. It's the same check. But yeah, we don't have the manpower. Oh, we can't afford that. It's designed to make us self-censor. And it's effective. It's effective. I mean, look at me with my stupid warnings about like medical advice.
Did with them. I only put them up on Rumble. And so that's another way, right, that you could measure, correct?
The point is that we're capturing all the evidence. No one's ever captured the evidence before. We really are their worst nightmare, because all what they use to manipulate, to influence, it's all ephemeral. It's ephemeral content. Ephemeral means short-lived. 2018, there was a leak of emails from Google to the Wall Street Journal, and Google employees were discussing how can we use, and again, I do my finger quotes, ephemeral experiences to change people's views about Trump's travel ban. Well, my head just spun when I saw that.
Really?
Because they actually used the term. I mean, I had been studying ephemeral experiences for years in my research, and they actually use the term because they know that's where the power lies, because ephemeral means it appears, it affects people, it disappears, it's gone forever, and it's not stored anywhere.
Wow. So
That's why nobody remembers anything ever.
Yeah, so you know what? I would like to get a hold of that video. Both those videos you mentioned already. The first one with the up and down arrows.
Yeah.
Where
I got it.
So can you send me a link to that, or send me that video?
I can send you the link. It's a fantastic thing to watch, because you're seeing the inside of the machine and how it really works. And I'm in touch with people, with whistleblowers from Google who haven't even blown the whistle yet. So I know so much that it's astonishing, frankly, that I'm still alive.
I said that last time.
I agree with you. I'm not kidding. That I can't believe that they haven't. Well, there's certainly a target on your back. There's certainly one on mine, and I'm not as half as damaging as you are to these people.
Here's something brand new. A week ago, the data that flows into America's Digital Shield, where the numbers keep changing. By the way, you should scroll down a bit and start to look at those images that are going to young children, because they'll blow your mind. But the point is, all the data stopped flowing into America's Digital Shield, which is flowing in from thousands of computers around the country, and it works beautifully. And all of a sudden, all the data stopped flowing. There were just like blanks all over the page. So, I made some calls. My son, one of my sons who works for me and does tech work for me, he jumps in his car. He's going to run into this secret office we have to try to diagnose the problem. and he makes it halfway there, and he gets broadsided by a hit and run driver. This was at night, so he
Okay.
couldn't go. Didn't make it to the office to diagnose the problem. But we have all kinds of crazy things happening, like to our team all the time, and some terrible things. But the point is that we're collecting the data, and that's the key. Because how do you stop them? Is you make them accountable. How do you stop them? You actually collect the evidence. In other words, is it legal for them? Was it legal for them in Florida to be sending out go vote reminders
Is this really
all day?
true?
on their-
Someone in Rumble said the same thing. Is this true that his wife died under mysterious circumstances? Because that will make me feel guilty about joking about his wife. This guy's site is America's Digital Shield. Let me, before I show that to you and turn YouTube crazy. It's America's Digital Shield. I don't want you to see what. That's not funny. I feel guilty now. Yeah, so I don't want you to see like the next part where he shows the stuff that they're showing kids, because there's some gross stuff there, which YouTube might not be happy about. But this is where he's showing how they preserve, because the whole point when they talk about ephemeral, that what they do, this is an important thing. They try to make it difficult for them to be exposed by just really putting it up there and maybe using that for a day and then just yanking it down so you can't find it anymore. And they're preserving it. That's the key. They're preserving the political bias that are being manifested. It's unbelievable. Look at that. They're working hard in Wyoming, apparently. Wow. They're saying that without big tech, there would be a 27 to 59 seat majority. Wow. In the House. And Republicans would have a 2 to 8 seat majority in the Senate. And here are specific elections that they're claiming got flipped. Wow. That Trump would have had between 311 and 325 electoral votes. That's astonishing.
Homepage just to liberals or mainly to liberals? No, that's actually illegal.
Wow. So, but you need someone to enforce that, right? And
You need the evidence. Before you can enforce it, you have to collect. And how can you collect it? Because it's all ephemeral.
right.
And that's what they count on. They never, ever thought anyone or any group would ever be able to capture all of this data on, especially on a massive scale like we're doing. We're even, where we're even preserving, when you start to type a search term,
Yeah.
and they flash search suggestions
Yes.
at you.
Yes.
Look at how brief those are. We're collecting tens of millions of those. We're collecting all kinds of stuff that they use to manipulate. And those search suggestions, we know from our experimental research, if you fiddle with those search suggestions as they do in our research, we can turn a 50-50 split among undecided voters into a 90-10 split with no one having the slightest idea they've been manipulated.
Wow.
No kidding. Wow. So
Wow.
what's been your experience with, so do you think we need more legislation, or what could we do to what could we do? What's a good way to counter this besides just you collecting the data?
Legislation. I just had to send, a few minutes before this, got on your show, I just had to send a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee, because after I testified, Senator Klobuchar, who's a Democrat and who's generally speaking, a pretty reasonable person, she said that my research team is violating people's privacy because we're looking over people's shoulders to see what's on their screen. Now, somehow she missed the fact that I said right after that, just like the Nielsen company does with its television viewers. I mean, our people are volunteers, And when we send their data to our computers, we leave out any identifying information. We go to great lengths to preserve people's privacy. And she undermined my whole presentation by saying that our monitoring system violates people's privacy. The Congress is not going to help us with this problem.
Oh, no,
The Democrats are in their pocket, and Republicans hate regulation. They're not going to help us.
So can you go to full screen, Andrew, on the other computer? So according to your website here, you claim that these elections actually were flipped by Google, and you say that the 2021 was a flip. Now, I'm not allowed to say that on this channel, so of course it wasn't. This is just a crazy accusation that you're making.
Yeah.
And you say that the 2021, without Google's manipulation, Donald Trump would have got 311 to 325 electoral votes, and he would have been president. You also say the 2022 Arizona governor race was influenced by Google, and that Kerry Lake would have won that one. You also say the 2022 Georgia Senate race, where Raphael Warnock won, you said that it would have went to Herschel Walker. You also say the 2022 Wisconsin Senate race, Tony Evers is the winner. You say it would have went to Tim Mikas, whatever his name is. And then in the 2022 U.S. Senate, just in general, the Democrats have a 2-seat majority. It would be a 2 to 8 seat majority for the Republicans if without the Google manipulation. Also, the U.S. House of Representatives, the Republicans, well, they do have a 10-seat majority, but without the manipulation, they would have, according to you, a 27 to 59 seat majority. How could you? So you could. Now you're sure of those numbers, is what you're saying?
The lower value is, in every case is rock solid. The upper value is a little bit more tenuous, but the lower value is absolutely rock solid. We've gotten better and better. We've been doing this for more than 11 years. We've gotten better and better at figuring out what's going on and at measuring very precisely what's going on. And we know what happens when Google is involved, and we know how to factor out their influence. And their influence is unbelievable. And they know it, and they're very proud of it, and they think they're doing good, good for humanity, and maybe they are. I don't want to argue that point. I just don't like a private company having that power, and I don't like them undermining our democracy and turning the free and fair election into just a farce.
So, well, I really hope I don't get in trouble for having you on. And Russ, you have a question. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, you mentioned that you have at the bottom of your site things that are being targeted at children. So we've seen a lot of this with, I assume you're referring to a lot of inappropriate sexual content directed at children. I
was looking at it. It didn't look like all that. It looked kind of just weird. It looked like that Spider-Man and Elsa thing from way back. That weird algorithm.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you keep watching, you'll see sexual content. You're seeing real content.
Well, we know. I mean, there are a lot of these just very bizarre battles. That 10 years ago, I think if you suggested to somebody that you wanted to expose their children to some of this stuff, the same people defending it now would have punched you in the mouth. So there's clearly been a kind of reconditioning of what people accept, what they think is appropriate. You see also this very, bizarre, healthy at any size, and we have one fat influencer after another dropping dead. So it seems like these algorithms are trying to normalize these very bizarre ideas. Would you say that that's true? And do you have any insights into who's directing that and what the purpose of that is?
In my opinion, there is absolutely no question that there is a process of social engineering going on here, in which a lot of it is exactly what you called it, is normalization. Now, normalization of what? Well, some of it's kind of obvious, normalization of alternative sexual practices, and normalization of alternative gender language, and some of it is not really hidden. But what we're seeing now that we're actually collecting the data, we're seeing that a lot of what's occurring, a lot of the social engineering that's occurring, we don't understand. We don't know what the heck they're doing, and that's in a way the biggest problem of all, is that they're so secretive that we don't know who's making those decisions. We don't know.
What's so hard to understand? What's so hard to understand? If you assume that the weaker the nuclear family is, the stronger, the bigger the void there is in people's lives, and the more influence you can have over them, all of this makes more sense. It enables government to have more influence, and enables big tech to have more influence. The weaker and weaker, the more you destroy the fabric of the American family, the weaker people are, the more dependent they are on both big tech and government. They're more dependent on overlords. They're more confused. They're less able to understand basic right from wrong. I mean, it's not that hard to. It doesn't take rocket science to recognize that. Okay, he's smart enough to realize and assert the point that, hey, every single thing that big tech does, every single thing they do is to amass data. More data, more data, more data. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, why do they want more data? Well, more data enables them to have better targeted ways of controlling people. It's always about power. It's very, very obvious. You already know. You're the one who's asserting that every single thing they do is for more data. If it's for more data, it's for more power. If it's for more power, then in that case, when they're helping deconstruct basic human psyche, helping to normalize things that are self-destructive to the individual and to the family, why would they be doing that? It's for the exact same answer. It's the exact same answer. It's for their own power. It's for their own strength. It's for their own ability to have a greater and greater influence over individuals. It's very simple. It's not like I'm saying anything that's very novel. It's not like I'm saying anything that's not staring this guy in the face. I don't understand why it is that it's like, I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. What do you mean you can't figure it out? It's like it's the only possible conclusion.
What they're really trying to do, especially with children. But there's no question they're being extremely aggressive with kids. And we are capturing the evidence. Even though we don't really understand it very well, we're capturing it. And one of the big advantages there is, as long as you capture it, you can go back in time and figure things out. You can get multiple experts working on it, and all kinds of people with all kinds of agendas looking at. But if you don't capture it, imagine not capturing any of this information, then you have no idea what's going on. You don't know why there was no red wave. You don't know why such and such a person won the election. You don't know what's going on in the heads of our kids.
So I would just go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it just looks like the world is nuts, and you don't get it.
So I think, first of all, maybe this would explain my urge to put on a Dolly Parton wig and a dress and go read to children at libraries. So I didn't know where that came from.
That's what we did after the steakhouse last
Yeah,
night.
that's what we did.
I didn't think you were going to mention that.
But also, do you think so? You would think that the Republicans would be jumping up and down about this and writing, even though they're averse to regulation, they would certainly want a regulation for self-preservation. But I think probably the reason why that isn't happening is because the donor class, which is who they serve, just like the Democrats, it's the same handful of donors that run the Democrats and run the Republicans. And they don't want them to have any regulation to stop this. And so would you agree that's probably a logical thesis of mine?
There, I'm not sure, because we've gotten we get thousands of small gifts all the time. I think in the last few weeks we've gotten $40,000 in small donations, which is, by the way, not enough to keep a monitoring system going.
Right.
That screen you're looking at, that's a $3 million screen. That's how much it costs. It took us a year and $3 million to build that nationwide system. But we get a lot of small gifts from people, which is wonderful. But now and then we get a big gift. And all I can say is I'm very confused about who's stepping up and really helping to build this. I think sometimes
I know you think that, and it's true. You are choosing, but you're choosing from what's selected. If I go into DC and I try a case, I can choose whichever jurors I want, but I have to choose from the jury pool. So if an algorithm is keeping something from outside your radar, your jury pool of what you watch is limited to only things that exist. And if you don't know it exists, it's outside your jury pool of what you can select that you choose to watch. That's the point. So, yeah, you want to know why it is I've been milling around that every day I lose 20 people. It's like a consistent thing between 20 and 9 people, which is impossible organically. and I don't get people coming in here, it's because the only people who know about me are the people who already know about me. You're not going to be exposed to me when I'm doing a live stream. No, very, very, very few people are going to be exposed to me for the first time on a live stream. The reason I'm streaming to X right now is the hope that people will find me on YouTube and or Rumble and basically use and sub up. But yeah, just a live stream, no one's finding me. No one, if someone who's finding me, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that people, who are following similar type of content that correlates with the nature of my messaging, or content that at least relates to the topic that I'm covering, that I'm putting in my thumbnail, I'm putting in my title, I'm putting in my description, that you would think that would go into their feed. It should, but it doesn't. So those people are not finding. So I'm not in their jury pool. I never get into their jury pool. I'm basically outside Washington, D.C., and they just have their jury pool, and there's no good logic in that jury pool, so they don't think to look. They're not going to come up with the name Good Logic. The reason I created a second channel called Trump Trials, so I figured, you know what? Maybe that's something people organically will naturally start looking for as these trials start coming closer and closer.
People, they get it and they don't want to talk about it, but they're willing to support it behind the scenes. And
those big gifts are coming from me. And I don't want to out my cover, but there it is.
Now I know, because in fact, a lot of money that's come in has come in anonymously through charitable giving departments of big New York banks. So
really,
yep.
I don't know. You would think like someone who's like an Elon Musk type, who's kind of his big thing is free speech, and so whether it's Elon Musk or not, but someone like that is what you're referring to, who would be a big donor, and those people have to exist. I know. That even though most of the billionaires are, nefarious, you don't get to become a billionaire by helping people.
And this is true. This is true. Thank you, Jimmy's brother, Kevin, for making this point. Yeah, this is true. He can only, it's likely I guess, but it sounded like he was being asked to speculate, like, why do you think it is? And he sort of shied away from it. And I don't know why he did that. So, but yeah, I can understand that. There is value to making sure that you're keeping your opinion out of things. So, and I guess he is in data collection, so he doesn't want people to think that it's tainted by his opinion, that his data mining is tainted by opinion. So you're right that the nature of his product is one that would want him to make sure he remains free of any taint that he's got leanings. That's possible.
Well, let's be honest, right? You get to become a billionaire by crushing people and stealing stuff, just like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and the rest of them. But not Mark Cuban, right? Come on. Anyway,
he's a good billionaire.
He's a good billionaire. So, well, I will. So tell me the website again so I can alert people to go to it. And if people want to donate, where can they donate?
Well, the website, the one you've been showing little glimpses of, is americasdigitalshield.com. And we're very, very proud of it. It took a tremendous crew of people, almost 50 people, a full year, $3 million in donations, and it works. Now we have to scale it up so that we have court admissible data in all 50 states. And so we can really stop these companies, and we have to make it permanent. So if people want to help, well, number one, they could sponsor one of our watchdogs, these people who let us look over their shoulders. So if you want to feed a watchdog, go to feedthewatchdog.org, and sign up. And for $25 a month, you can actually sponsor one of those people. That's all we pay them. We just pay them $25 a month, and in return, they're doing something wonderful for us. And by the way, they're politically balanced. We're very careful about that. If you want more information, or you want, you have big money, or you know Elon personally, then go to mygoogleresearch.com, and then there's links to tons and tons of stuff, our scientific work, all kinds of interviews I've done, and there's links to if you're in a position to help with major gifts, and we get those all the time too. I just opened an envelope. There was a $25,000 check in it from people I've never heard of in my life. So there are some people who get this. And again, if you're kind of thinking about it, and think what happens if we don't have a system like this in place. Just think about that, which is like
And to answer your question, because I know Cedar Rose is one of who who's similar to the rest of you, is saying like, okay, so now we know this information, but how do we use that in order to stop them from going forward on it? And the point is that, and to answer your question, what he claims is that the more pressure that comes from Washington, that they're very responsive to pressure from Washington, very responsive to that, and that the more, and Washington asserts pressure when there's evidence, and that he's providing evidence. So that's what his point is. And he cited the example where he saw that they went to zero bias for a period of time after getting a letter from, which he said he's never seen in 10 years prior to that, after they got a letter from signed off by Senators Cruz, Johnson, and Lee. So yeah, that's essentially what he's advocating as to how they could potentially be stopped. And it makes sense that they're responsive to pressure because they have an incestuous relationship with government.
Normal. That's normal. There is no system in place and we have no idea what's going on. Okay. Now we have an alternative. We have a system that's collecting the data, and this system will push these companies away from our kids and away from our elections.
Well, I certainly noticed how they manipulate the search engine, right? So if I was trying to find a study by the Cleveland Clinic about boosters, and that study is not favorable to the big pharma, and I couldn't find it. I kept finding all these articles that debunked the Cleveland Clinic study, but I couldn't find articles that told you what actually was in the Cleveland Clinic study. And I knew exactly what was going on, that they were manipulating the search engine results. And I could probably find that, but it would be on the 27th page of the search. So
we are capturing that evidence and we're measuring that bias. Okay, and we're doing it 24 hours a day, and their numbers are getting bigger. We're past 70 million already, and we're there. We're there looking very, very carefully and preserving the evidence. Now, let me just tell you that I mentioned at one point the senators sent a threatening letter to the CEO of Google, and I mentioned they turned off the partisan go vote reminders, wow, that was amazing. They also turned off the political bias on the Google search engine, which I thought was impossible. It literally went from a big negative number, which means strongly liberal, to 0. I thought that was impossible. And then I talked to one of the Google whistleblowers. He was a software engineer there for more than 8 years. And he said, yeah, he said, they can turn the bias on and off. And I quote, like flipping a light switch. And then he showed me a manual. I can get you the manual if you want.
I would love it.
He showed me a manual from inside Google that is for their Twiddler system. And guess what their Twiddler system is? It's a system for manipulating bias
for
on
diddling
search
us.
engines.
That's holy cow! And they call that Twiddler.
Twiddler. That's their Twiddler system. That's their internal name for it.
Okay.
I have the manual.
One more time.
For manipulating bias on search engines.
Holy cow! And they call that Twiddler.
Twiddler. That's their Twiddler system. That's their internal name for it.
Okay.
I have the manual.
I really, honest to God, I can't believe you're alive. And I mean, it's not a joke. Actually, this is really what you're doing. Is you are messing with the global forces of power, and in the most unbelievable way. I mean, look what they're doing to the people who showed up to January 6th to protest that election that you say Google had a hand in, and would have went the other way if Google didn't exert their bias. And those people felt that, so they went and protested. They're putting those people in jail for 20 years, 30 years. They're ruthless what they're doing. And they all pretend that those people showed up to overthrow the government, and of course they didn't, because they were a bunch of Second Amendment gun nuts, and they showed up to the Capitol, and none of them brought their guns. And if you're going to overthrow the government, you think the first thing you do is you'd be packing some heat and you bring some guns, but they didn't. So that's how. But that's the narrative that Google pushes. That's the narrative that the mainstream media pushes. And is there anybody in the
Look at Jimmy standing up for MAGA on January 6th.
Mainstream media that is interested in your story?
Oh, they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I used to write for all the big places, U.S. News and World Report, Time Magazine, et cetera, et cetera. Even Dissent, I published in Dissent. I mean, I've been everywhere. I used to be editor-in-chief of Psychology Today. And then after I testified before Congress in 2019, and Ted Cruz was in charge of that hearing, and he was very, very, welcoming of my messaging, obviously. Very welcoming. He then invited me to a 4-hour private dinner, and we talked tech for 4 hours. I mean, the guy's, he's really something.
Did you get invited on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein? No.
No, thank God. And thank God, by the way, he's Epstein and I'm Epstein.
Yes.
That's very important.
Okay. And I don't think he's got anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. But let's not pretend. Let's not pretend it's a different name. Let's not pretend. It's not.
The point is, the next thing that happens is Trump, after I testified.
That's like changing your name from Epstein. he's a trans Epstein. His grandpa was Epstein. He's a trans Epstein.
Trump tweeted about my testimony, obviously, because I was saying the election was rigged. This is 2019. I'm talking about the 2016. Anyway, the point is, then, okay, so Trump didn't get his tweet quite right. You know, who cares? Doesn't matter. I could have lived through that. But then Hillary Clinton replied to his tweet and said that my work had been completely debunked and that it was based on data from 21 undecided voters. And then, boom, this machine starts running. I'd heard about it. New York Times, 100 mainstream publications. My just reputation, which had been flawless as a researcher for 40 years, completely destroyed.
Yeah, that's
And now
that's
these
how
people
they
won't talk to me.
Yeah, that's how they do it. It's character assassination, and then they make it seem like you're some kind of a fringe kook, which is what they did with all the people who had a counter narrative to COVID, like Dr. Robert Malone and McCullough and Pierre Corey. These are
no medical advice here. Zero medical advice. He's not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. None of us are doctors. There's no medical advice.
leaders in their field, the most cited people, the people who are the most well respected, and they made them all seem like they were crazy kooks. And just like they made ivermectin seem like it was not a human medicine, even though it's on the WHO list of essential medicines and it won the Nobel Prize for human medicine, they got most of the people in the country to think that that was.
Do you think it's like the name Adolf? Do you think it's really that bad? It's like the name like Adolf. You really think it's like the name Adolf? I don't think so. I don't think it's quite that bad.
Some only used for horses. It was a veterinary medicine. And I try to remind people that, 80% of antibiotics are used on farms. That doesn't make penicillin a cow medicine, right? But they got people to think that, and that's the power of propaganda. I mean, this is Brave New World, and George Orwell, it seems to be on steroids, like worse than we could have ever imagined, and we're living in it. And so that's why it's funny to me when I have people come on my show, like, for instance, Cornel West, and he tries to pretend that we have to worry about fascism coming to America through the election of Donald Trump. And I had to disabuse him of that stupid idea that you've been living in fascism for at least since COVID started. I mean, the real overpowering fascism. And it just didn't bother you because he lives in an ivory tower and he's not in the working class. And so he didn't care about any of that stuff that happened.
He's living in Pan Am. Although I think that referring to this as fascism, that is hyperbole. And I had a conversation with Ron Coleman about this, and he's like, we're not living in a military state. That's real fascism. That's real fascism. Thank God. Thank God. Is it fascistic compared to what it was 40 years ago? Yeah, okay. It has far more fascistic tendencies, but it's not fascism. That's a bit hyperbole. It's gross. It's overbearing. It's immoral. Don't think I don't recognize the fascistic nature of what's going on. I recognize it at least as well as anyone else. I dare say. Not like I should say. I dare say. I recognize it very, very well. And yes, it's corrupt. And yes, it's designed to control us. And yes, they are controlling us. But it's not the same thing like, okay, you're in a gulag. It's not that. We're not at that point where I have to genuinely be concerned that in the middle of this stream, there's going to be like a knock on my door, or not a knock, just a door bashed open and like people marching in here. That's real fascism. That's real fascism. Thank God we don't know what real fascism is. But yeah, so that's why I just don't like. I just want to call out hyperbole when I see it. But that's real fascism. Try moving to China. That's real fascism.
And he's pretending to not see it, and he's still pretending that fascism is something off in the future in America. And no, you're living in it. It came, and you turned a blind eye to it. So this idea to try to scare people about fascism.
Yeah, I can understand people saying that we are moving down that road. And yes, I definitely see that if we continue in the path that we're going, we certainly can end up at fascism. I'm simply saying we're thank God we're not there yet. And it's not inevitable that that's where we will end up. because it can be stopped. And that's why stuff like this must be called to attention so that it is stopped.
You're not scared of it because you're living in it and you're not blowing the whistle about it at all. I'm talking about people like him. There's lots. I just use him as a one example because he came on my show and I was personally offended by all the garbage he spewed on my show.
Let me tell you something sad, and that is that my team is the only one in the world that does this research. That really bothered Joe Rogan. That really bugged him because he thought lots of people should be studying this, and lots of people should be fighting this. And
I don't want to get
there is nobody, because they're either scared of Google or they are owned by Google.
The Google is is the richest company in the history of humankind, and so people need to realize that. And they're not doing the bidding of the workers. They're not doing the bidding of regular people. They're in business to do the bidding of the most powerful entities and power centers in the world, right? And that would be the Bilderbergs, that would be the WEF, that would be the handful of billionaires that control the whole global economy. And I'm always reminded of that scene in that movie Network from 1974 with Ned Beatty, and he gives that famous speech where he said there are no countries anymore, there are only companies and the international transfer of dollars. And he says to him, you have upset that balance and you will atone. And so that's why I'm sure, I can't believe that you haven't gotten that speech yet, or if someone hasn't visited you personally. And the fact that you're still alive is amazing. And so do you have a food taster?
Well, when I did a private briefing for a bunch of AGs at Stanford University, in fact, Ken Paxton was the head of the group then. He's the big dude, the big guy from Texas. He has 800 lawyers in his department. And I gave them my whole spiel and I scared the crap out of them, and I went out in the hall, and then one of the AGs came out into the hall. I know exactly who it was. He's still an AG. And he said, Dr. Epstein, I don't mean to really, scare you. He said, but based on what you've told us, this was summer of 2019, that same summer that I testified for the first time. Based on what you've said, he said, I think you're going to be killed in some sort of accident in the next few months. And then he walked away. And of course, I wasn't killed, but my wife was.
Right. I remember you sharing that. It's a very sad story. And I remember you saying you're still not over it.
That's right.
Yeah. So, well, that's a tough thing to get over. I don't think you ever get over something like that. But, have you been on Joe Rogan's show?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, but yeah, I was on a show.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe he's one of those big donors. Who knows? I bet he is. I bet he's one of those guys who cares.
Well, he gave me a cell phone number.
Okay.
It's more than you've done.
Yeah. Well, I care about my life, but hey, my phone got tapped. So my phone and computer got tapped into by what my IT guy said was the Mossad. That they used a thing that only the Mossad has, and he said it was definitely a nation state, if not the Mossad, and they got into my iCloud account, and he said, Jimmy, I couldn't even do that. So this is a guy who's my IT guy who gets hired by countries to try to hack into their computer networks to try to find vulnerabilities. He's ex-military intelligence, all that stuff, and he's the one who told me this. And so I gave a speech at the UN about the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline, and I'm sure that didn't help. And so I'm with you. I'm looking over my shoulder all the time, and I'm I've been invited to let's say famous places of influence, and so that's the carrot and stick that they're using with me, right? So they're trying to scare me and they're trying to entice me to join them, and that's actually happening. The MK Ultra is a real thing. The WEF is a real thing, and well, listen, we have to. Speaking of that, we have to switch now, and we're going to go take our live stream to go to Rumble, right? So we're going to do the rest of our show on Rumble. And I just want to say thank you for coming on. Is there anything that I didn't ask you, or is there anything you want to share with our audience before we say goodbye?
Go to americasdigitalshield.com. Go to
the link is in the description below.
Feed the Watchdog.org. I think it is feedthewatchdog.org.
That's .org. I have it as .com, so I'll change it. That's if you want to support. These are because they pay $25 a month to people who volunteer, or I guess in theory, if you wanted to join. Joe, didn't they say last week they're going to start going after people who are around the Capitol, not enter or in the Capitol on January 6th? I think we're getting close to the F word. I didn't see that. I haven't seen that anywhere. But it comes in increments. And that's an increment. That's why, Dershowitz has his whole, his whole yardstick for how many bananas we're in towards getting to a banana republic. I think he has us at like 7 out of 10. And yeah, banana republic is a complete banana republic would be 10 out of 10. We are far too close, far closer than America ever should have been. Yeah, it's terrible. It is terrible. I'm not disputing that. I'm simply saying it's not. We're not at that place yet. Here's an interesting little tidbit for you that you have not seen. This is from a month ago. I think the chances are very low you've seen this. And it's a 15-minute video, which is called 2024 Election Map Prediction Based on Current Polls. Now, polls, you can consider polls whatever you consider polls to be worth, but this guy spent a great deal of time going through it, and I was like, you know what, this is interesting. I want to share this with people. Maybe it's a little bit of a white pill for some of y'all. Maybe it's a little bit of a white pill. Maybe I like bringing white pills. I'm the man with the white pill. I'm here with your white pill. Shove it down your throat. Shove that white pill down your throat. That video is a bit of a black pill. So this is the video that I wanted to share with you, which is a little bit of a white pill. It's 15 minutes. So it's still early. It's courtesy of the Electoralists. So I'm going to give props to him and actually incorporate this in my description in case anyone wants to watch it on their own. Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden has seen a sharp drop in his approval rating over the past 3 weeks, allowing Donald Trump to gain ground in the polls in several swing states. But is it enough to put Trump ahead in the Electoral College? Let's head to the map. We'll start by giving Joe Biden all the states he is sure to win. Those include Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. And now for the states that Donald Trump would definitely win.
Isn't that freaky? He's starting with 180 out of 270. That's the reality. He's starting with 180 out of 270. I was thinking about this in the last election. It just seems so messed up.
When those include Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska at large, as well as the 1st and 3rd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina. We also have several states that are nearly safe and will probably be decided by about 10%. In New Mexico, Joe Biden leads Donald Trump by 8, according to a public policy polling poll from August. Democrats have won New Mexico by double digits in 3 of the past 4 elections. 2016 was closer because Hillary Clinton was a relatively weak candidate, and Gary Johnson, the state's former governor, was running on the Libertarian Party line. It's in the likely column for now, but I do think New Mexico should be a pretty comfortable victory for Joe Biden. It has been over a year since our last poll out of Maine, but Democrats have carried the state at large, as well as the 1st Congressional District, in every election since 1992. I'm not expecting any surprises in 2024, but we will leave the 2nd Congressional District blank for now. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Now, Colorado and Minnesota are both states that in past videos I've had in the likely column for Joe Biden. And I still think that when we look at the whole picture, they are states Biden should win by 7 to 10 points. However, this map is based on the polls, and recent Emerson polls from both states should cause a little concern for the Biden campaign. In Colorado, the most recent Emerson poll shows Biden ahead by 4%. This poll was conducted in early October before Biden's dip in approval. That puts Colorado in the lean Biden column for now, but I'd be very surprised if Trump flipped Colorado in 2024. An Emerson poll from Minnesota shows Biden leading by just
I mean, he covered Colorado. He's not going to carry Colorado.
2%. Biden won Minnesota by 7 in 2020, and Democrats have carried the state in every presidential election since 1976. Even Reagan couldn't flip Minnesota. Again, based on current polls, Minnesota is a lean Biden state, but I would expect him to win it by at least 5% in 2024. And while Biden's current polling numbers don't look great in Colorado or Minnesota, they look really strong in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has been purplish in the past, but a recent CNN poll shows Biden leading Trump by 12. An Emerson poll from August shows Biden leading Trump by 7. Average them out, you get Biden plus 9.5, which tracks with polling from over the past several months. It's a likely Joe Biden state for now. We'll take a look at our likely Trump states next, but before we do, if you're enjoying this video so far, hit that like button. It helps this channel reach more people. We'll start with Alaska, where the latest polls show Trump up by 8 in a head-to-head matchup with Biden, as well as in a three-way race that includes...
What happened 10-17? Why would you say post 10-17? I think there's reason to worry with Colorado, especially with younger voters. Why? What happened 10-17?
Includes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So yeah, let's talk about RFK Jr. real quick. If you've watched some of my other videos, I don't think he's going to be a big factor in 2024.
Oh,
that being said, I have seen the recent polls showing RFK Jr. north of 20%. And I just really don't think that's going to hold up. We're about a year
I still don't think Colorado is going to change.
out from the general election, and the two major party frontrunners are super...
Well, Gaza was 10-7. That's why I was confused. I thought there was something that happened specifically in Colorado.
unpopular. I'm expecting voters from both parties to consolidate around their nominees as we get closer to the election. Additionally, RFK Jr. doesn't have ballot access anywhere at this point. But regardless, polls show Alaska as a likely Trump victory in 2024. Trump would also be a pretty decent-sized favorite in Iowa. The state has taken a bit of a right turn, despite Obama winning it in 2008 and 2012. Recent polls out of Iowa have shown Trump consistently ahead with a double-digit lead. Ironically, the one exception was a poll sponsored by a Republican group. Iowa is a likely Trump state in 2024. It's a little strange that Ohio really doesn't fit into the swing state category anymore. Trump won it by 8 in 2016 and 2020. Recent polls indicate that he's going to do it again in 2024. We have several recent results out of Ohio. Data for Progress shows Trump leading by 8. Ohio Northern University shows Trump leading by 5, and Change Research in a poll sponsored by a Democratic group shows Trump ahead by 5. If we average these results, we get Trump plus 6, putting it in the likely category for him. Polling from Texas has been a little weird. Our most recent poll was conducted by YouGov, and it showed Joe Biden beating every single GOP presidential candidate not named Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. Before that, our next most recent poll was from May, showing Biden trailing Trump and DeSantis by just 2%. And before that, we had an April poll sponsored by a Republican group showing Trump leading Biden by just 3%. It's true that Texas has voted for the Republican presidential candidate in every election since 1980, but it's also true that the GOP margin of victory has been shrinking. Trump only won Texas by 5.5% in 2020. I don't think this is the year the Democrats flip Texas, but we're a lot closer to Texas flipping than I think most people realize. If the election were tomorrow, I'd expect a Trump victory of right around 5%. But our most recent poll, and the only one that has been conducted recently, showed Trump with an 8-point lead. I'm going to put it in the likely column for Donald Trump.
If Texas ever goes blue, someone asked me a while ago, when is it time, Joe? When is it time? When is it time? I'll tell you right now, when Texas goes blue. I'm not going to say anymore. Texas goes blue. Texas goes blue.
Florida is a state that's teetering on the edge of lean and likely for Trump, and we do have a recent poll from Redfield and Wilton Strategies. I had never heard of them before, so when I looked at their polling record, an obvious pattern immediately popped out. In all of their 2020 polls, they overestimated Joe Biden's support. I think some of that has to do with their online polling methodology. We saw Trump win Florida by 3.4% in 2020, followed by an absolute GOP landslide in 2022. The question is whether the result in 2024 will be closer to 2020 or 2022. Is Florida too far gone for the Democrats? A potential X factor in Florida and several other states are activist efforts to get constitutional amendments related to abortion on the ballot for 2024. Abortion measures have generated a ton of turnout for the Democrats since Roe v. Wade was overturned, and having these sorts of measures on the ballot in 2024 could help Joe Biden lock down vital swing states.
That's true.
That being said, it's very difficult to get constitutional amendment initiatives on the ballot in Florida, and I doubt this effort will be successful in 2024. So with that tangent out of the way and getting back to the polls, Trump leads Biden by 5 head-to-head and by 7 in a three-way race in a poll that had consistent bias towards Joe Biden in 2020. I'm putting Florida in the likely Trump column for now. And that brings us to our swing states and swing districts. If you're enjoying this video so far, subscribe to the channel. I post regular Electoral College and Senate race predictions, and there'll be plenty more between now and Election Day. In previous videos, I've had Virginia in the likely Biden column. And maybe when we consider the totality of factors, it should still be a likely Biden state. However, we're focusing on the polls in this video, and recent Virginia polling hasn't been great for Joe Biden. A Research America poll found Donald Trump and Joe Biden tied. A Changed Research poll sponsored by Future Majority PAC, a Democratic organization, showed Biden with a 5-point lead over Trump. That lead shrunk to 1% when Cornel West was added. The lead turned into a tie when Joe Manchin was added too. Even if we look back a little further at a Roanoke College poll from August, yes, Biden leads by 9, but that's actually a 7-point swing in Trump's favor from their previous poll in May. All this is to say that Virginia appears to be tightening. Democrats may be encouraged by winning full control of the General Assembly in the 2023 midterms, but they also lost several swing districts. It wasn't exactly a blue wave. An average of polls since September puts Biden ahead by 2.5 points, landing Virginia in the lean Biden column. I think Biden is also the slight favorite to win Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. It's a district he won in 2020, and Nebraska is another state where abortion rights activists are looking to get measures added to the ballot. If they're successful, Biden would almost certainly win the 2nd congressional district, as it's home to the state's largest metropolitan area. Working against Biden and the Democrats are new district maps passed in 2022, which may make the district slightly more favorable for the GOP. We don't have any polls from this district, and I doubt we will for some time.
I'm just going to say right now, Republicans want to win. You know how you win? Turn every state into Nebraska. Every state. That's how you win. That's how Republicans will never lose an election again. Turn every state into Nebraska. Because all of a sudden California isn't going to be 54 votes. It'll be 37 votes to 17. And you start breaking it down on smaller bases, where you basically have, okay, we're going to separate the major city from like the rest of the state, and actually break it down that way. You're going to see, instead of rolling the dice on the entire state based on whether or not some city is going to flip it blue or not, you isolate that city, give them their electoral votes based on who's in that city. And then that way, New York, if we had that in New York would be like 16-12 blue. Upstate New York is very red. Upstate New York is very red. That's how you get it. That's how the Democrats would never win another election again. Illinois would be like 11 to 8. Chicago will end up going there, and the rest of it, I'm telling you right now, any Republican candidate would walk out with 300 electoral votes if every state was run the way Nebraska is run. But somehow the only states that do this are like the deeply red states. I mean, I guess Maine, we're going to see that, but that is how Republicans would win if this became like a national initiative. Break it down further. Break it down further. Break it down further. So yeah, you know what? So and you sell it by basically saying, you know what? If Texas, gave Austin its own thing, so instead of Texas being 40 red, so it would end up being 34 red and 6 blue. It'd be a much healthier way to go. I'm telling you right now. You get 300 red every year. Every 4 years, we'd see 300 red.
so I'm going to leave it in the lean Biden column. On the flip side, I think Donald Trump is the favorite to win Maine's 2nd congressional district. It's the more rural of Maine's congressional districts, and its demographics favor Trump. Trump won this district by 10 in 2016 and 7 in 2020. In the absence of polling, I'm putting it in the lean Trump category, though I wouldn't blame anyone for saying it's likely Trump.
See, I saw your suggestion earlier, which was how about a popular vote? And I'm going to tell you right now that I let that go and didn't say anything because I've spoken out against popular vote numerous times because it's inherently stupid, and it's directly contrasted to what I'm suggesting, which is that we give power on a local level. That's recognizing the difference between people who are in California from those who are in Utah. That's recognizing the difference from people who are in Western California from Eastern California. It's that there are different cultures. That's giving people what they want, as opposed to a straight democracy, in which case you basically, a straight democracy has always, without exception, over the long haul, led to the ruination of every country. So yeah, the popular vote, no, it's stupid. And what I'm suggesting is, hey, you know what? If the people in Nebraska want this, so go ahead, give it to them. People in Los Angeles want something, that's fine. Why do the people of Los Angeles get to outweigh the people of the wine growers in Napa Valley? Why? Why should that be? Because they're in the same stupid state. And California was split into 14 different states. Would it win all 14 states? So the people who are stuck living in the same state as San Francisco and Los Angeles, so it's like, oh, too bad, sucks to be you. Rather than just being like, hey, you know what? Like everyone who lives within 50 miles of us, the vast majority of us want one thing, but unfortunately we're outweighed by the people who live 300 miles away. It's stupid. That's not democratic. It's the opposite of democratic. So no, it's not about how to win. It's about how to reflect the will of people, while at the same time recognizing that, hey, cultures are a little bit different in this part of the world, in one part of the country from another part.
And now we're down to the 7 states that will really decide this election. We'll start in Georgia, where recent polling is very bad for Joe Biden, even though it's a state he won in 2020. Here are some recent polling results in head-to-head matchups. Morning Consult has Trump +7, Emerson has Trump +8 among likely voters, and Trump +7 among registered voters. University of Georgia has Trump +2, and New York Times Siena has Trump +5 among likely voters and Trump +6 among registered voters. All of these polls have been published this month. So why is Trump polling so well in Georgia right now? We can only speculate, but we do know that Brian Kemp, the state's governor, is very popular. Joe Biden's approval rating is falling, and Georgia is a historically conservative state. Making matters worse for the Democratic Party is a new voting law that may make it more difficult for people to vote absentee. Even if we didn't have these polls, I'd put Georgia in at least the tilt Trump column, but if we average recent polling, we get a Trump lead of slightly more than 5%, which actually puts this in the likely Trump column. In North Carolina, we have 2 polls conducted this month. Morning Consult showed Trump leading by 9 head-to-head, and in a 4-way race that included RFK Jr. and Cornel West. We also have a Meredith College poll showing Biden leading Trump by 1%. If we average them out, we get a lead of Trump +4, making it a lean Trump state. It's a state he won in 2016 and 2020, but the Biden campaign is actively trying to flip it in 2024. Right now, it really seems like Joe Biden would be better off playing defense in the states that he won in 2020. States like Nevada, where recent polling really does not look good for Joe Biden. In head-to-head matchups, Morning Consult shows Trump ahead by 3, Emerson College shows Trump ahead by 3 among likely voters and by 7 among registered voters, and New York Times Siena shows Trump ahead by 11. Yikes. One bright spot for Joe Biden comes from a poll conducted by Terrence Group. They have a conservative bias, and this poll in particular was sponsored by the National Republican Senatorial Committee. It showed a tie. If we average these results, and I'll use likely voter polls since those have historically been more accurate, we get a lead of 4.25% for Donald Trump, landing Nevada in the lean Trump column. I think you're starting to see why Democratic organizers are beginning to panic about Biden's prospects
I'll
in
try to get him on soon.
2024. At this point, Donald Trump just needs one of Michigan or
I'd be
Pennsylvania.
curious about his take about what I was suggesting. The debt. Hey, look, the test worked. The debt needs to be addressed in this election. The only way to solve this is one, promote a flat tax, federal consumption like Nebraska. I don't believe in that. It sounds a lot like someone who was talking about something. What was it? HR 16? Was that what it was? It was HR. It was definitely HR 16, right? I'm going to have to Google HR. It's HR 16 that guy wants me to read. All right? It was Patrick. Patrick wanted me to read HR 16. It sounds like you're promoting HR 16, which I've addressed that. Definitely HR 16. Yeah, I think it was HR 16. You okay? I'm sorry.
Or a combination of any two states left on the board, and based on current polls, it shows that Donald Trump would win Arizona as well. Morning Consult has Trump +4. Emerson has Trump +2, New York Times Siena has Trump +5, and Noble Predictive Insights has Trump +8. Average those out, we get a Trump lead of 4.75%, again putting it in the lean column for Donald Trump. If we weren't just basing this map on the polls, here's where I'd say there are several factors that work in Biden's favor, including the state's shifting demographics and the potential for an abortion rights proposal to be on the ballot. Activists have been working on that proposal for a while now, and I think it's much more likely to happen in Arizona than it is in Florida. If an abortion rights vote is on the ballot in 2024, Biden's chances of holding on to Arizona, a state he won by just 0.3% in 2020, go way up. But based on current polls, Trump is clearly the favorite right now. Arizona brings Trump to 268 electoral votes. Biden needs to win all three remaining states just to hit 270, which is the minimum required to win. Of the three remaining Rust Belt states, Joe Biden actually looks strongest in Wisconsin. It's a state he won by less than 1% in 2020, so he can't afford to lose too much ground. Here are the head-to-head polling results from the past month. Morning Consult shows Trump up by 1. Emerson shows Trump and Biden tied among likely voters, but with a Trump 1-point lead among registered voters. New York Times Siena has Biden up by 2, and Marquette has Biden up by 2. For those that don't know, Marquette is really the gold standard of Wisconsin polling, but all three pollsters are highly rated and well respected. If we average these results, we get a Biden lead of less than 1%, just like 2020. That makes Wisconsin a tilt Biden state. Michigan polling is also razor thin. Biden won Michigan by less than 3% in 2020, and it's shaping up to be a very close race once again. Here are the head-to-head polling results from the past month. Morning Consult shows a tie. Emerson shows Biden ahead.
I'm not going to kid you. The fact that he's portraying Trump as needing either Michigan or Pennsylvania, that's a little scary. It's a little scary given the history of Detroit and Philadelphia to basically come up with whatever number of votes they need. That's definitely scary. Not going to kid you. It's scary. But let's hear him play out.
By 1 among likely voters and ahead by 2 among registered voters. But the New York Times Siena poll shows a tie among likely voters and Trump leading by 5 among registered voters. I've been favoring the likely voter polls in this video, and when we average those out, Biden's lead is less than 1%, making it another tilt state for him. If you use the polls of registered voters or just average all 5 results, it's a tilt Trump state. You'll see that's not going to matter in just a second, but I want to talk briefly about 2 major warning signs for Biden in Michigan. First, his approval rating among Michigan independents is really, really bad. Second, and at the risk of this video being demonetized, the Biden administration's handling of the conflict in Gaza is losing him support among Michigan Muslims. Michigan has a very large Muslim population, and these are votes Joe Biden cannot afford to lose. A Biden win in Michigan puts all eyes on Pennsylvania, and Biden's recent polling numbers really just aren't that great. Morning Consult shows Trump ahead by 3. Emerson shows Trump ahead by 4 among likely voters and by 3 among registered voters. New York Times Siena shows Trump up by 5 among likely voters and ahead by 4 among registered voters. The lone bright spot for Joe Biden is a Franklin and Marshall poll showing him ahead by 2%. If you average out these results, you get a Trump lead of 2.5%, putting it in the lean column and delivering a victory for Donald Trump in 2024. This is quite a big shift from my last video, which I published a couple months ago. I had Biden at 270 electoral votes with Georgia and Nevada as true toss-ups. Just 2
There you
months
go.
ago, polls showed Biden with a ceiling of 292 electoral votes. Now the polls show Trump as the clear favorite with the possibility of a landslide if he manages to flip the tilt states of Michigan and Wisconsin. Who do you think will win in 2024? Let me know in the comments section down below, then check out my next video to see what the polls currently say about the 2024 Senate elections. Thanks for watching.
So there you go. That is the electoral list. And he only has 8,500 subscribers. And even though this video had 870,000 views, I assume that you guys probably, I'm going to subscribe. I'm going to give him a subscribe. Just why not? And I'll give him a little thumbs up. There's a little thumbs up. Wait, did I show me? I don't know. He did a good job. He did a good job. So the remaining states are the ones most vulnerable to big time. Probably. Anyway, that's my show for tonight. I'm going to land my plane a little bit early tonight. Well, or late, depending on whether you're counting how long I've been going versus when I started and all that other stuff. So, yeah. January 9th, though, I'm going to be airing live oral arguments. Trump, presidential immunity or not? DC Circuit Court. You do not want to miss this. Don't be late. Make sure you're there. Catch it live when it happens in person, 9:30 a.m. 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, January 9th. Tuesday, January 9th. I'll be here. It'll probably be on Trump Trial Channel, depending on whether I get monetized there by then or not. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm kind of on strike until I get monetized there. But yeah, so it definitely will be here on Good Logic. Probably on X as well, and obviously also Rumble, in the Rumble ghetto. Speaking of Rumble ghetto, let me do a double check here, make sure I didn't miss anything, which it looks like it's good. It looks like I'm good there. And am I good over here? I'm good over here. We're good everywhere. It's time for me to start landing my plane. So my final words to you, as always, are Ben George says, until Trump is on the presidential ballot, this is all just BS speculation. It's too early to make any prediction. He's going to be on the ballot. He's going to be on the ballot. He's going to be on the ballot. You heard it here first. He will be on the ballot. He will be. He will be. Stop. Don't worry about Ben. He's going to be on the ballot. Okay? If not, I'll eat my hat. I will eat my hat if he's not on the ballot. All right. That's my show. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, what little there is left of it. And the way you can do that, the way you can stay happy, is eat the bugs. And as always, Godspeed.